Even if this strike has been called off by the time you are watching this program, a record has already been set, both in the number of times strikes have been had in the judiciary and the number of days this strike has gone on for. It is not a welcome development at all that the third arm of government has been shut down for the number of days it has been. But what is most important are the mechanism on ground to resolve strikes in the judiciary. That is what we're going to be looking at on this edition. Welcome to the program. I am Femi Okeowo. I'm sure you must have noticed the kind of reaction that goes on when teachers, university lecturers, doctors go on strike. There is an immediate response that comes up from the structure of the nation as to be able to respond to the strikes and begin to talk about resolving them. But the judiciary, particularly if the grievance is not against the hierarchy in this arm of government, it is always difficult to get people to respond, particularly in this strike where the grievance is against state governors. And so that is why it has gone on for this long to have this strike resolved. Let's look at what has been done so far and speak to one of the officials of the Judiciary Staff Union of Nigeria, who gives us a brief and an update of the efforts to resolve this dilemma. Give us an update of what has been happening in the last 2 weeks that this strike has started.
Well, in the first place, we are looking for our financial autonomy from the governors, because there is an executive order signed by Mr. President authorizing the governors to allow the money meant for state chief judge to have their money direct from the office of the Accountant General of the Federation. We have given them an ultimatum. The ultimatum expired. That was why we are on this strike.
And now let's also talk to some of the parties that are most affected, legal practitioners themselves. Let's talk to one of them, in fact, one of the very highly placed ones, a senior advocate of Nigeria, Ahmed Raji. Leonard Silk, what's your feeling about the strike in the judicial arm of the Nigerian government?
Well, my feeling is that it's a bizarre development. It's not desirable in any system. But I'm not blaming JUSU members. I'm not blaming them. I'm blaming those who have refused to comply with a judgment of a court of law. Because they've served them several notices, they've issued several warnings. Why is it impossible to comply with a court order validly issued? More so, the federal government is complying with the order. What is making it impossible for the state governments to comply? Are they above the law? It's marks of impunity. The judges are ready to sit. They are not on strike. Yesterday we had a sitting at the Supreme Court in respect of a matter that will be lapsing tomorrow. So back to your question, I believe it is the federal government who sits on top of everything in this country that should look into this quickly and rein in those governors or those state governments who are not complying. Because this is a development that is bound to send wrong signals to the international community. You can imagine an investor trying to come into a country where the court can close for 10 days, not being on holiday, not even an urgent matter can be taken, except for the kind of a room they made for us in the Supreme Court yesterday. You go now, the vacation judge cannot go to the Federal Court. But that is not to say I'm blaming the members of the JUSUN. The blame falls on the state governments who are not complying with a subsisting order of the court on the autonomy and financial independence of the judicial arm of government.
A court order,
yes,
which took its effect from the Constitution. They are not just disobeying the court order, they are also disobeying the Constitution.
That is very correct. That is very correct. That is where the federal government is expected to rein them in. That is where the federal government is expected, although the federal government and the president signed an executive order and they tried to, the government and all authorities have a duty, a sacred duty to enforce all judgments of the court, including the judgment in question now. So the federal government of Nigeria, realizing its sacred role to project the image of Nigeria in the best way possible, should not fold arms and watch this strike go on this way. It should do something. It should rein in those governors, relying on the subsisting judgment, and perhaps send the money directly to the relevant judiciaries without, except they are trying to play politics with it and say, which state is it? Is it party A in state B, or is it party B in state C, or whatever you? But the federal government has a duty, because this is not telling well on the image of Nigeria as a country in the Committee of Nations, that you can close down court this way. Judges are not on strike, but judges cannot do the work in the court themselves. They need registrars, they need clerks, they need cleaners, they need everything. The elevators must work. How do they go to 3, 4, 5 floors when they get to their court? How do they move? Who will be in charge of generators?
That is even if they are allowed into their court.
At all. So these are the problems. The judges are not on strike. The judges want to work. But it is the support staff that is on strike, and justifiably so.
Someone has suggested that if you have a court judgment,
yes,
there is also a judicial way of enforcing that judgment.
Yeah.
What can be done to enforce judicially this judgment that
you think of several ways. Either you do attachment or contempt, which is the most common, that is you serve from 48 or 49, and then you proceed to commit to prison. But who do you commit to prison here? People that enjoy immunity? So this is not a normal case, amenable to the normal, usual enforcement proceedings. This is one in which the federal government should wake up and intervene directly and rein in those state governments. And if they are afraid, they should quickly approach Supreme Court for an interpretation, and that they should get an order warehousing the money that should go to non-states that are not complying. Yeah.
Now, this is not the first time JUSUN is going on strike on this matter.
Yes.
Appeals have started to come left, right, and center, pressure on JUSUN. They may call off the strike, but no solution is found.
That is not desirable. That is not desirable. A permanent, especially, they are talking of a court judgment, subsisting judgment. Subsisting. It's not been set aside. So why? Why would they not obey? How would they feel if the federal government is not releasing their money? And federal government now says they will be managing the resources of Nigeria directly from Abuja. After all, the same constitution that gave the court the power to adjudicate is the one that prescribes that money be allocated to the states. What if the federal government sits on top of everything and they say, so we are ruling the entire Nigeria? And so they need water in Nasarawa and Kano. Oh, they were going to go and do it. They need health center in Shinkavi village. Oh, we are going to do it there. Or they need borehole in Iseyin. Oh, they are going to fix it. So they bypass the various state governments. How will it be? I think the affected state government should do the needful. And if they fail to do the needful, the federal government should intervene directly and do the needful, relying on the subsidy. Because the federal government has a duty, more than anybody in this system, to make sure the judgments of the courts are obeyed. Otherwise, rule of law will be bye-bye. And then impunity will be ready.
The scale has the privilege of speaking to the secretary of the Presidential Committee on the Implementation of the Autonomy of the Judiciary and the Legislature, Senator Ita Ina. You're welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you very much and welcome.
The President signed an executive order. What brought about the signing of an executive order when there was already a constitutional provision that the legislature and the judiciary should be autonomous?
Thank you very much, and again, thank you for putting me on the scale on this matter. It is unfortunate that the implementation of the autonomy of state legislature and state judiciary has again resulted in a nationwide strike due to the action of the governors of the 36 states, of 34 states, which have refused to implement the autonomy. Let me thank the governor of Bayelsa State, His Excellency Doye Diri, because he has implemented the autonomy by releasing money for the judiciary, to the judiciary, to be spent by the judiciary, and that money of the legislature to the legislature. And also His Excellency Governor Senator Kowa of Delta State, who has also implemented. The others, but then those states are still also on strike. The other states have not implemented. Upon the coming into force of the fourth alteration to the Constitution, which granted autonomy to the legislature and judiciary, the president waited for over a year, and the governors were not implementing. And the president holds the ultimate duty to all citizens of the Federal Republic of Nigeria because he swore to protect and defend the Constitution. And where there is an infraction, he has to take action. Now, on the basis of that, Mr. President constituted the Presidential Implementation Committee on the Autonomy of State Legislature and Judiciary, which is chaired by the Honorable Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami, SAN. I am the secretary of the committee. The committee is made up of two chief judges representing the body of chief judges, the speaker of two state houses of assembly representing the conference of speakers, the accountant general of the federation, the governors forum, the director general of the governors forum is a member. Then is also made up of the secretary of the National Judicial Council. It's made up of the representative of the body of commissioners of finance of states houses of assembly.
Okay.
You know,
of state government.
State governments. I beg your pardon. Now, the essence was to have it's a made up of a representative of the Senate and a representative of the House of Representatives in the committee. So it is an all-encompassing committee. Now, we sat and we invited the governors for a dialogue. We invited the governors, went on a dialogue, and we had a national conference held at the Hilton. And now, after that, we made recommendations to the president in our interim report, and the recommendations were accepted. And the governors were part of all these recommendations, and these recommendations, which the Presidential Implementation Committee made, is what His Excellency Mr. President reduced to executive order and signed it into executive order. That the import of the executive order is simply laying out the procedure for implementation at the state level. And the procedure is simply adopting the procedure that is adopted at the federal level. And this is the modality that was laid down, that is laid down in Mr. President's executive order as to how this should be done at the state level. This is the executive order 10. And then it has a clause which says that in case you fail, if you fail to release the money that is meant for the judiciary to the judiciary, and the accountant general to, and the executive to the, and the legislature to the legislature, and this is reported to the implementation committee, the accountant, the attorney general of the federation shall, by instrument, direct the accountant general of the federation to deduct the amount which that arm of government of that state is entitled, and then credit the account of that arm of government in that state. Now, this is what it is about.
Why do we have this strike when in the implementation committee you already know that in case states fail, the accountant general of the federation can deduct? Why is states' funds meant for judiciary or legislature not being deducted and passed on to the legislature or the judiciary of those states?
Well, we had gone very far on this, but Their Excellency the governors raised issues to Mr. President, and Mr. President directed the Chief of Staff, the Office of the Attorney General, to intervene so that they could hear the issues that the governors have. And the governors and His Excellency the Chief of Staff did set up a technical committee to look at the issues that were involved, and the governors came and made presentations. Now, the report has been submitted to His Excellency the Chief of Staff. A lot is going on at that level to arrive at a little bit more of amicable issues. But the Judiciary Staff Union have waited for so long, and so that they no more can wait according to them. That is why they have locked the door of the courts and say no more sitting until all the issues are resolved. Also, the Parliamentary Staff Union have waited so long for the implementation, and it has not been done. So they have also locked the doors of these 36 state houses of assembly, and so there is no sitting until these issues are resolved. The issues is also subject of conciliation before the Honorable Minister of Labour, Senator Dr. Chris Nwabweze Ngige. We've made one appearance there, and another appearance is also scheduled. We would have held it, but the Honorable Minister of Labour said, since there is intervention on multi-dimensional intervention, let those interventions arrive at different concrete issues, so that when they come, they can be put as a bullet point for understanding. But to state exactly what the issues are, the Labour, Parliamentary Staff Union, and Judicial Staff Union are saying they want the money in their accounts. 1. 2, they want every state government, in accordance with what is in the executive order and in compliance with what happens at the federal level, to have and sign the funds management law in each of the 36 states, which will guarantee the management of the funds at the level of every state. Let me commend the Chief of Staff, the Office of the Attorney General, Their Excellency the Governors, the Speakers Conference. I hope I mentioned that the President of the Nigerian Bar Association is a member of the Implementation Committee. He's a member. And at that conciliation, I was impressed. I didn't expect anything lower. The Nigerian Bar Association stood up and said that they are all at one with the Executive Order 10, They are at one with the Judiciary Staff Union. They are at one with the position of the judges, and that they are prepared to suffer however long it takes for this to be implemented. I want to use the opportunity to thank the Nigerian Bar Association and all the lawyers, and let me assure them that it may be long. No matter how long it takes, we will have justice for the judiciary, and only then can you have an independent judiciary where every person is on a scale, and the scale of justice will deliver to all.
Now, that's the much we're going to be taking on the strike so far, and let's hope that even after calling off the strike, a final resolution will be sought to the constitutional provision and the refusal of the parties involved to adhere to both the court judgment, the constitutional provision, the executive order, and the good, smooth running of the judiciary. Now, before we close up this program, let's take you to the National Assembly, where the National Human Rights Commission nominees for the Board of Governors of that commission were screened by the Senate Committee on Judiciary. Here is Mobolaji with that story.
Before the committee is the presidential nominee, chairman and members of the Governing Council of the National Human Rights Commission. The lawmakers are pointing out critical areas and other lapses in the judicial sector and how the nominees can address them if confirmed.
A very critical issue, the issue of the need to better fund the National Human Rights Commission.
With vast experience of the nominees, especially on human rights-related matters, the nominees say they are set to carry out advocacy programs in achieving the mandate of the commission.
A lot of work has already been done and continues to be done at the National Human Rights Commission. My hope and prayer, if you kindly screen and find it fit to recommend us for appointment, is that our current team will build on what has been done and probably take it a step further.
I will do my best to see how we can step up enlightenment in terms of the rights of Nigeria, but injecting into it the responsibilities too.
I interact with a lot of diplomats outside, so it will be a source of asset to be able to get some funding from other international organizations for the committee.
So I surely think that we must have to look at those areas that touch on our youth. What is making them to be restive? And in doing so, we make sure that they are protected.
Reports by the committee would be submitted to the Senate at plenary for further legislative action. From the National Assembly, Mobolaji, Moribiri, NTA News.